Here's a look at the 10 most shocking stays in Hotel Hell. Out here, the horrors you'll uncover are more than just bad hospitality, they're downright disturbing. Alright, now let's dive into the chaotic world of the Juniper Hill Inn, one of the most jaw-droppingly disastrous hotels featured on Hotel Hell. From the moment Chef Ramsay stepped foot in this 110-year-old Vermont inn, you knew it was going to be a ride. We're talking about an antiques-filled overpriced mess that leaves you asking, how did it even get this far? First off, the hotel is run by Robert Dean II, a so-called antiques dealer, and his boyfriend Ari Nicky, who, bless his heart, has sunk his entire life savings into this sinking ship.
I've always thought you should live with nice things if you can afford them.
It was all my income that when I was working, and then my retirement plans.
Robert, on the other hand, seems to be living in a parallel universe where unpaid staff and luxurious living on the brink of bankruptcy are totally normal.
But that doesn't stop Robert from living a millionaire's dream.
Robert believes this place is his.
When Chef Ramsay arrived, he was impressed by the beauty of the place, but that feeling quickly turned sour when he realized the front door was locked. Yeah, you heard that right, locked. Inside, the insanity only escalated. Chef Ramsay's room smelled like sewage because it hadn't been used in 4 months.
Oh my god, it smells like sewage.
I mean, disgusting. Who wouldn't want to spend $350 a night for that?
$350?
2-night minimum, so that's $700.
Yeah, that's $700 for 2 nights. Crazy. Speaking of meals, don't get your hopes up. The hotel only served breakfast and dinner, and only if you requested it in advance.
The restaurant's closed for lunch.
Yes. If someone requests lunch, we'll make lunch for them.
But wait, it gets worse. The real kicker was when Chef Ramsay found out that Robert and Ari lived in a $100,000 RV parked right outside the inn while their staff was practically starving.
How much was that?
Over $100,000.
$100,000?
Talk about priorities, right? And when Chef Ramsay finally got some food, it was a total train wreck. Crab cakes that taste like soap and lamb that were raw and sickly sweet. No wonder the locals didn't dine here.
That thing tastes sort of washy and soapy. He's as cheap with his crab cake.
And to top it all off, the desserts, the only thing that Chef Ramsay liked were store-bought.
That is not a dessert that he made. It's ordered.
Like store-bought.
As the episode progressed, Chef Ramsay uncovered more secrets. The basement was filled with hoarded antiques, the locals thought the owners were elitist, and Robert was pocketing the tips meant for his already underpaid staff.
Wine racks, chairs, tables, copper pan.
And the cherry on top, the antiques, which Robert valued so highly, were worth a measly $25,000 due to their poor condition. Ouch! In true Chef Ramsay fashion, he managed to pull off a miraculous transformation, turning the hotel into a welcoming space.
You have a spacious, gracious, warm reception room.
But honestly, no amount of renovation could scrub away the stench of what went down at the Juniper Hill Inn. The staff left, the inn went into foreclosure, and Robert and Ari's hotel dreams crumbled just like their reputation. Next up, we have Chef Ramsay rolling up to Angler's Lodge, nestled in the serene landscapes of Island Park, Idaho. He probably didn't expect to find a place that would make his stomach churn. But as we all know, things took a gnarly turn, and the beauty of Yellowstone's backyard was overshadowed by the nightmare inside. As soon as Chef Ramsay checked into his room, the first red flag popped up like a bad Wi-Fi connection. Sure, the view was stunning, but the room itself? A total buzzkill. The air conditioner was caked in dust, making it seem like it hadn't been cleaned since the last millennium. It was a sad sight.
Hence the reason why this room stinks of air freshener.
But if you thought that was bad, buckle up, because it only gets worse. The food situation, a complete and utter disaster. Chef Ramsay was served frozen chicken wings with some half-hearted BBQ sauce. Like, are you serious? You're in a prime fishing spot and you're dishing out freezer-burned food? Even the trout, which should have been the star of the show, was a disgrace. Chef Ramsay called it the worst trout he'd ever had. And when Chef Ramsay says that, you know it's game over.
I believe they come frozen.
Inside the kitchen, things were straight up chaotic. Gina, the chef, seemed more like a kitchen dictator than a culinary artist. She had total control over the menu, but let's just say her choices were questionable at best. When a food critic came in during the relaunch, Gina practically imploded under the pressure. The kale salad she sent out was so bad that even Chef Ramsay, who's seen it all, had to step in and stop it from reaching the table. Ouch.
Can you season it?
I did salt.
As if the food wasn't already a hot mess, Gina started spiraling, sending out more disastrous dishes. Chef Ramsay finally had enough and sent her home mid-service. It was like watching a train wreck in slow motion, painful, but you just couldn't look away. After she was gone, the kitchen finally found its groove, and for a moment, things didn't look as bleak.
Stop. I want you to take your apron off and then go home.
But the chaos wasn't just confined to the kitchen. Dave, one of the owners, had some serious attitude issues. Customers complained that he made them feel as welcome as a wet blanket at a summer picnic. Chef Ramsay had to pull him aside for a heart-to-heart, like a dad telling his teenage son to get his act together. The truth bomb? Dave was more assertive than friendly, and it was tanking the lodge's vibe.
Time helps heal, you know, but there's a hole in your heart that never heals.
By the time Chef Ramsay left, the lodge had a fresh coat of paint and a revamped menu, but the underlying issues? They needed more than just a few pep talks and some new decor. Chef Ramsay brought in a consultant to help them navigate the rocky waters, and even told Dave and Dee Dee to reconnect over a romantic dinner. Because, let's be real, if the love for each other is MIA, how can you expect to run a business together?
See Dave smiling. It's like the pressure's lifted off.
In the end, Angler's Lodge may have gotten a makeover, but the real test was whether they could keep it together after Chef Ramsay left. The episode was like watching a slow car crash. It was rough, but you just had to see how it all ended. Now, moving on to the Brick Hotel in Newtown, Pennsylvania, was more like a historical nightmare than a cozy getaway. Owned by therapist Verinder Kaur and her son CJ, the hotel was purchased back in 2006, with the duo thinking they'd stumbled onto a gold mine. But in reality, it was a dumpster fire waiting to happen. When Chef Ramsay arrived, he was greeted by a smashed window on the front door, peeling wallpaper, and even bullet holes in the wall. Yeah, you heard that right, bullet holes. Once inside, Chef Ramsay checked into his room and found that everything was covered in years of dust.
I need a rag, napkin.
The clock, the TV, even the ceiling had stains that screamed neglect. The whole place was like a set for a horror movie, and let's not forget the moldy shower curtains and yellow-stained pillowcases in the other rooms. It was like living in a time capsule, just not in a cool way.
That's mold. Sid?
But it wasn't just the grime that had people running for the hills. Verinder, the hotel's owner, ran the place like a dictator. Staff turnover was through the roof, with over 50 employees cycling through in just 8 months. Former employees even told Chef Ramsay that she would call the cops on anyone who dared to ask for their full paycheck. That's some real shady business right there.
For the staff and didn't understand that your staff is a huge asset.
When it came to the food, it didn't get any better. Chef Ramsay ordered a French onion soup that tasted like dirty dishwater, a cauliflower steak that was a straight-up hot mess, and a crab sandwich made with canned crab meat. Gross. He even canceled his burger order because he knew his stomach couldn't handle more of that garbage.
That's so bad. Terrible. To be frozen, but not from a can.
In the kitchen, it was chaos. There was no head chef, just a bunch of confused staff trying to make sense of Verinder's constant yelling. And the cherry on top? Chef Ramsay found a pot of thick black grease sitting above the hood, an absolute fire hazard. When he tested the hotel's cleanliness with his bacteria kit, the numbers were off the charts, like 5,680 on a shower curtain. That's the kind of filth that gives you nightmares.
Bacteria. I've got to wash my hands.
Chef Ramsay had seen enough. He set off the fire alarm and evacuated the guests, putting an end to the madness for the night. It was a wake-up call that Verinder desperately needed, but whether she'd actually take it was anyone's guess.
Let's go. Out. Barry, drop what you're doing, go off.
The Brick Hotel was a disaster from top to bottom, but in true Ramsay fashion, he brought in a makeover that gave the place a new lease on life. The lobby, the rooms, the menu, everything got a glow up. With CJ stepping up and Verinder finally letting go, the hotel had a shot at redemption. But honestly, it had been a long road from the disgusting mess it once was. Next, let's shift our focus to Vienna Inn. This wasn't just a disaster, it was a full-on catastrophe waiting to happen. When Chef Ramsay rolled up to this Austrian-themed nightmare, he probably had no idea he'd be greeted by a dead cat at the front door. Yeah, you read that right, a dead cat and a cabbage, like some twisted welcome gift. Right off the bat, things were looking sketchy, but this was just the tip of the iceberg.
This place. My God. What happened to him?
The hotel was run by Jonathan and Lisa Kruk, who, let's be real, were a hot mess. Locals had long sworn off the place, thanks to rumors of wild adult parties in the basement.
Some really expensive stuff.
The whole vibe of the inn screamed creepy with its cluttered decor, including a picture of a Prussian murderer and a dead man's violin chilling on the dining table. And Chef Ramsay's room? A nightmare with a locked closet that Lisa claimed for herself. You know it's bad when the owner's wardrobe takes precedence over paying guests.
That's another closet.
What do you mean another closet?
I don't have a closet in my bedroom.
But where am I going to hang my clothes?
The kitchen wasn't any better. Jonathan, who supposedly had culinary skills, served up some boar that was more like a soggy, underseasoned mess. The scallops, straight up rancid.
That's rancid.
And let's not even talk about the mushroom crepe. It was more of a train wreck with an edible flower thrown on top, probably to distract from the disaster underneath.
I mean, the food is so dated. It's extraordinary. Like a pair of camels.
Chef Ramsay didn't hold back, calling the place prehistoric, and straight up telling Jonathan and Lisa to shut it down because their hearts weren't in it. Then came the epic evening service. Picture this, 2-day-old chicken sitting on the pass, food timing all messed up, and a fridge filled with cross-contaminated meat. I mean, Chef Ramsay nearly lost it.
2 days ago. That's the last of them.
Why do we roast them 2 days in advance?
And when he confronted the couple about the whole operation being screwed, what did Lisa do? She headed straight to the bar for a drink like it was just another Tuesday. But the real kicker, the way they treated their staff. No payroll system, paychecks that bounced, and rude texts from the owners, this place was toxic to the core. Chef Ramsay called a staff meeting, something that had apparently never happened before. And the stories that came out were insane.
You don't have an actual payroll system.
There's no payroll system.
One waiter got smacked in the back of the head in front of customers, and Lisa's fake emotional outbursts were nothing but a joke. In the end, Chef Ramsay tried to fix things up with a sommelier, new uniforms, and a refreshed menu. But Lisa, ever the ungrateful diva, couldn't help but complain about the renovations. When Chef Ramsay mentioned a new stove installation, she acted like he hadn't done enough. It was clear that Vienna Inn was beyond saving.
Expected the Blumenzimmer to be done, not the Koenig, but it was the room I didn't expect.
They reverted back to their old ways after Chef Ramsay left, undoing all his hard work. No surprise that the place closed down after a fire in 2017, Vienna Inn was doomed from the start. Transitioning to the River Rock Inn in Milford, Pennsylvania had all the charm of a haunted house, but without the fun. When Chef Ramsay rolled up to this disaster of an inn, the first thing he noticed was the total absence of hospitality. No one was even there to greet him. He stumbled upon a dusty desk in the hallway, which turned out to be the check-in area. Seriously, this place was a joke. When Karen, the assistant innkeeper, finally showed up, Chef Ramsay wiped dust and dirt right off the check-in desk. The whole vibe screamed old and neglected, and the place hadn't seen a decent clean in ages.
Oh dear.
Oh dear, that is pretty bad.
She led him to his room, giving him a rundown of the hotel's history, dating back to the 1880s. Chef Ramsay couldn't help but joke that the decorations hadn't changed since then. The room tour was just one nightmare after another, dead insects, a live cockroach, and a closet full of hangers and extra carpeting. Who needs carpet in a closet? The Wi-Fi was only accessible from a chair awkwardly placed in a corner, and Chef Ramsay couldn't even get the old tube TV to work.
Welcome me on the toilet,
No way.
having a number 2.
At this point, the rooms weren't just dirty, they were downright dangerous to stay in. Chef Ramsay hoped dinner might be the saving grace, given that the owner, Ken Pisciotta, was a chef. But nope, Ken had checked out of the kitchen and left the cooking to someone else. The menu was all over the place, with Mexican, Thai, and Italian dishes, everything except local cuisine. When Chef Ramsay tried the food, it was bland and uninspired, just like the inn itself. After the lackluster meal, Chef Ramsay sat down with the staff, revealing that the rooms were filthy because Ken never bothered to inspect them. Seth, the head chef, admitted he just followed Ken's ridiculous menu since he was the boss. Things took a turn for the gross when Chef Ramsay whipped out his blacklight and discovered stains that were very likely semen. After that grim find, he chose to sleep in a sleeping bag rather than risk the bed.
Jesus Christ. That has got to be semen.
The next morning wasn't any better. The shower head was too low, making it impossible for Chef Ramsay to shower comfortably. He gathered the staff and current guests in his room for a brutal feedback session.
He's really just sucked the soul out of every one of us. He's just a spirit sucker, honestly.
The guests ripped the place apart. Broken drains, low shower heads, bugs, and beds that felt like medieval torture devices. Chef Ramsay showed Ken the filthy mattresses, and even Ken had to admit the place was disgusting. To clean up this train wreck, Chef Ramsay had the staff scrub the inn from top to bottom while he took the stained sheets to a dry cleaner. He found passive-aggressive notes from Ken in the kitchen, further proving that Ken had serious trust issues. Chef Ramsay then organized a staff meeting where they vented about Ken's toxic management style, which left him in tears. Realizing he needed to change, Ken apologized and made an effort to improve.
I watched everything you said, and I apologize.
Thanks to a makeover, the inn also got a makeover, new TVs, mattresses, and bedding, plus a revamped website.
Not a place you've got to come and die.
It is beautiful.
By the relaunch, the inn was transformed, and Ken was finally free to relax and mingle. Chef Ramsay also made sure Ken got a phone number from a single lady at the relaunch, leaving the inn with some hope for the future. Up next, we have Chef Ramsay pulling up to the Applegate River Lodge, hoping for a serene riverside retreat. Instead, he was smacked in the face with a stench so gnarly it practically had a pulse. The lodge, owned by Richard and Joanna Davis, was a hot mess after their split. From the jump, Chef Ramsay was hit by the funky smell wafting through the air, definitely not the fresh mountain air you'd expect. As he stepped inside, he was greeted by, well, no one. The lobby was this big, empty space that had somehow managed to be both deserted and cluttered. There was a sign telling guests to buzz for service, so Chef Ramsay did, but Richard, aka Pa Butt, took his sweet time sauntering out. Dude showed up high as a kite, claiming it was all medicinal. Yeah, right.
Hello?
Next up, the cattleman room, or should I say, the cow pie suite. The place reeked like it had been marinating in cow manure for years. The bed was covered in some tragic, outdated quilt, and the furniture looked like it was salvaged from a yard sale circa 1983. And bugs? Well, there were dead ones and live ones, take your pick. It was like nature's own little horror show.
The bugs. Bloody hell. Yeah.
Things didn't get any better in the kitchen. The chef was whipping up something that looked like it was made by a middle school cafeteria on a bad day. Wait, frozen salmon in a place where fresh fish was swimming just outside? Doesn't make sense. And don't even get me started on the Thousand Island dressing, which was basically ketchup and mayo slopped together. Bon appetit, right?
Was that ketchup in the salad? What for?
For the Thousand Island?
I can't believe this.
And then there was the grand finale, Richard's late night rager in the lobby. Guests were trying to check in, and it was like they'd stumbled into a chaotic, noisy frat party from hell. There was Richard, dressed as a dancing mushroom, just going off while paying guests were wondering what alternate universe they'd been transported to.
It's the smell. It's like the summer of love. These people are weird.
But the real kicker came when Chef Ramsay tried to sleep. He pulled out a black light, and suddenly, it was like he was in a crime scene. There were bodily fluids everywhere, pillows, mattress, walls, you name it. If you thought the smell was bad, this visual is the stuff of nightmares.
It's like a mosaic of semen.
By morning, Chef Ramsay had had enough. He called a family meeting, laying into them about how they were running this place into the ground. Richard, still high, was more interested in keeping it a home than a hotel, while Joanna was drowning in debt, losing thousands every month. As for their sons, they were too busy pocketing cash from their side hustles to care.
You two make a profit, but your mother loses money. Does not make sense.
In the end, Chef Ramsay tried to clean up the mess, literally and figuratively. He gave the place a makeover, hoping to salvage what little dignity was left. But man, Applegate River Lodge really gave new meaning to the term Hot Mess Express. Now, let's move on to the Lakeview Hotel in Chelan, Washington, which was supposed to be a serene escape. But what Chef Ramsay discovered was nothing short of a nightmare. The moment he stepped inside, he was greeted by thick layers of dust and cobwebs everywhere, like the place had been abandoned for years. It was as if the owners, Brent and Afni McDonald, had given up on basic cleanliness. So, what was the first red flag? The hotel had been closed for 3 weeks because Brent decided to go on a holiday to Mexico, leaving everything to rot in his absence. When Chef Ramsay was taken to his room, the best one in the hotel, there was no remote for the air conditioning, and the filter was so neglected, it was only cleaned twice a year. Can you even imagine? This is the stuff of nightmares for any guest hoping for a comfortable stay.
What's that there? Something is growing up there. I missed that spot too. Creepy crawly hanging down there.
Yes, I see that.
Then came the food. Chef Ramsay ordered a bunch of dishes, including the soon-to-be-famous teriyaki burger. Spoiler alert, it was famous for all the wrong reasons. The minestrone soup tasted like it was straight out of a can, the burger was as thin as a sheet of paper, and the turkey melt came with a broth so salty and bitter it could make you gag. And to top it all off, Brent had the nerve to say you couldn't get a fresh burger in the area. Seriously, bro?
It's so bad.
It's salty and bitter. You want to taste this, actually.
But the grossest part of this whole saga, that would be the state of the beds. Chef Ramsay brought out his trusty UV light, and what he found was straight up revolting. The pillows, duvets, and sheets were covered in unidentifiable fluids, and when confronted, Brent had the audacity to claim the sheets had been washed just a week ago. Yeah, right. This place was basically a biohazard.
Can you see that?
I can't see it, Jonathan. 1 week ago, every single one of them.
Absolute rubbish. And look at this.
The owners weren't just neglecting their guests, though. They were neglecting their own family. Brent's son had been fired due to alcohol issues, and the relationship had completely broken down. It was obvious that Brent was more focused on his own problems than on running a decent hotel.
But my son just drinks too much.
And if that wasn't enough, there was a local who spilled the tea on how Afni once scraped food into the bin, only to take it out, wipe it off, and serve it again. That's straight up nasty. It's no wonder the locals wanted nothing to do with this place. They were being served garbage.
Afni grabbed the baked potato, wipe it off,
Out the trash.
and she made her give that to the customer.
Despite Chef Ramsay's best efforts, it was clear that this hotel was beyond saving. Even after a complete overhaul, Brent refused to make the necessary changes, sticking with his adults-only policy and distancing himself further from the community.
Distancing himself from the locals. Much of the staff have left,
or been fired.
And the end result? The hotel continued to spiral downwards until it finally closed its doors in 2021. This episode of Hotel Hell was a perfect example of how neglect, denial, and just plain grossness can turn a place from a lakeside paradise into a disgusting nightmare. Now, we're looking at Murphy's Hotel, which had all the potential to be a charming, historical gem, but it quickly turned into a nightmare for anyone daring enough to stay the night. Built 150 years ago, this place was supposed to be a landmark, not a frat house. Unfortunately, the three owners, Brian, Kevin, and Joel, treated it like their personal playground. Things kicked off with Chef Ramsay arriving, expecting to be wowed by history, but the only thing that wowed him was the lack of management. The decor wasn't just dated, it was downright depressing. Guests were greeted with old furniture and zero maintenance.
Did the furniture since 1850?
Bloody hell. My God, it's like going to your grandma's funeral.
And Chef Ramsay's room? A tourist attraction. No joke. Tourists barged into his room like it was part of the hotel tour.
You'll see the restaurant room.
Close the door, close the door.
Okay, we're gonna be on display today.
Awkward much? But the real horror show was in the dining room. Chef Ramsay was served escargot that tasted like it was fished out of the local sewer. Seriously, it was rancid, and even the staff admitted it.
Jeez, absolutely rancid.
The steak and lamb shank were so bad that even the owners couldn't stomach them. Turns out these clowns had never even tasted their own food. Talk about a train wreck.
I've never personally had lamb shank ever being here. I do not like lamb.
Later, Chef Ramsay stumbled into their freezer, hoping for a breather, but found a biohazard instead. Raw pork chilling right next to cooked chicken, and mold making its home on pretty much everything. The freezer was more of a science experiment gone wrong than a place to store food. The staff claimed they cleaned it twice a week, but Chef Ramsay uncovered moldy tortillas that screamed otherwise. Gross doesn't even begin to cover it.
So the walk-in, how often?
And while the freezer should have been the wake-up call, it wasn't. The owners ditched cleaning up to join the party at the bar instead. By 1 a.m., the hotel was a rager and Chef Ramsay was still awake, wondering what the hell he'd gotten himself into. He wandered down to the bar to see Brian, one of the owners, going full frat bro, ripping his shirt sleeve like he was back in college. And when Chef Ramsay tried to call him out, Brian acted like the mess in the freezer was no biggie. The next day, the staff laid it out. This hotel wasn't just badly run, it was a disaster waiting to happen. The owners were more concerned with keeping the party alive than running a business. Reservations? Handled in the bar with the constant noise of a jukebox blaring. Professionalism? That was out the window a long time ago. Chef Ramsay finally got Brian to step up and take responsibility. But man, it was like dragging a kid out of a candy store.
Absolutely. Toe the line.
Gotcha. But there are 3 rules.
The team worked overnight to fix the mess, transforming the hotel into something presentable. The presidential suite was upgraded. The dining room was no longer an eyesore, and the menu was finally edible.
I'm stepping into history, but I also want some comfort.
Yeah, this is no way.
Oh, look at the color.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
This is incredible.
Up next, we have Chef Ramsay entering the Four Seasons Inn in West Dover, Vermont, expecting luxury, but instead, he found a nightmarish disaster. The moment he stepped in, the empty reception and untidy dog bed hinted at what was to come. Sandy McDougal, the owner, was a former construction worker who seemed to have no clue about running an inn, let alone keeping it clean.
Like a Four Seasons to me. Oof.
Things went from bad to worse when Chef Ramsay was shown to his room, which wasn't even ready. The bed was unmade, and to top it off, there were empty beer bottles lying around.
I'm surprised I'm still standing after I opened that door.
Moving into the dining area, the horrors continued. Layla, Sandy's dog, had free reign of the place, even settling under Chef Ramsay's table during lunch. But the real jaw-dropper was the food. The curry bread was so bad that Chef Ramsay fed it to the dog, then immediately checked to see if Layla was okay. If the food makes Chef Ramsay gag, you know it's next-level disgusting.
Curry bread. You'll eat anything.
And then there was the kitchen where the chaos truly peaked. Chef Steve, clearly defeated by the state of the place, revealed the apple risotto was made with apple concentrate. He wasn't even allowed to choose the ingredients. Steve's breakdown outside the kitchen was a moment of pure heartbreak, but also a sign of just how bad things had gotten.
Apple concentrate in a risotto.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
Chef Ramsay wasn't just dealing with bad food. The whole operation was a mess. The staff wasn't even getting paid, they just got to live at the inn for free. Not surprisingly, this led to some seriously low standards. The rooms were filthy, the service was laughable, and the guests were pissed. At one point, guests were overcharged because the servers had to double as front desk clerks. The only thing messier than the service was Sandy's leadership or lack thereof.
40-minute wait. Being told in the restaurant nothing's at the level you think.
The next morning, things hit rock bottom. The pillows in Chef Ramsay's room stank, and the swimming pool? Yeah, it had dog poop floating in it. Imagine trying to relax in that hot tub after seeing that mess. Chef Ramsay then brought out his trusty black light, and boy did it reveal the horrors. The pillows, sheets, mattress, and rug all lit up like a Christmas tree. The guests were so grossed out that they vowed never to come back.
Oh yeah, big one.
Sandy, can you see that?
Yes.
But Sandy was in denial, trying to hold it together, but when faced with the evidence, he finally broke down. Chef Ramsay had to remind him that he wasn't a chef. He was supposed to be running this place. And let's be real, he wasn't doing a great job either. In the end, the only thing more tragic than the state of the inn was the realization that Sandy had let it get this bad.
It does hurt me inside. The tears just keep coming out of my face. It's not what I wanted.
Despite the disaster, Chef Ramsay did what he does best. He turned the place around.
Is ready to open its doors and show off its stunning new look.
Finally, we have Chef Ramsay's visit to the Roosevelt Inn in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It was a wild ride through one of the most bizarre and downright nasty experiences in hotel hell history. This episode was filled with cringeworthy moments that had us all yelling, "What the heck?" Right from the jump, Chef Ramsay wasn't feeling the vibe of the place. The Roosevelt Inn, once an old school, looked like a sad, outdated funeral parlor. And that's not even the worst part. Once inside, he was greeted by a stench so bad it could knock out a grown man. Turns out the smell was from the owner's dogs. Yikes. Talk about a warm welcome.
Did the dog do a... Oh boy, I sure hope not.
John Hauve, the owner, had no idea how to run an inn, but he had plenty of excuses. He casually revealed that the inn was his old elementary school and he'd turned it into his personal playground. With occupancy at a pathetic 20% for a whole year, Chef Ramsay's disbelief turned to frustration when he saw the room he was supposed to stay in. A Pepto-Bismol pink nightmare that cost $319 a night.
And how much did you pay to stay in here?
$319.
$319. Bloody hell.
Can you imagine paying that much for dust and dinginess? Things only got weirder when John admitted he got violent with guests if they upset him. What? That's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Very, very violent, and have in the past. People get hurt.
Chef Ramsay wasn't having any of it, and when he inspected the room alone, it was even worse than expected. Dust everywhere, like the room hadn't been cleaned in years. It was the kind of place you'd expect to find in a horror movie, not a cozy inn.
Is the dust magnet hanging over my pillows?
The dinner situation was a total disaster. Chef Ramsay tried a shrimp cocktail that was as watery as a kiddie pool, and the salmon was so bad it went straight back to the kitchen. Chef Ramsay even asked for a boiled egg, and it came out undercooked. I mean, come on, that's like cooking 101, right?
That's a sad-looking shrimp. That's not a good start.
But the true horror show was when Chef Ramsay pulled out the black light. With guests and the owners present, he revealed the beddings and mattress were covered in bodily fluids. Tina, John's wife, was brought to tears. Honestly, who wouldn't be? It's a level of gross that you just can't unsee.
It's there. Oh my God.
Despite the disaster, there was a glimmer of hope. Chef Ramsay worked his magic, turning the place around with renovations, a new menu, and even securing a wedding booking for their updated ballroom. By the end, John finally admitted he needed to change, and the couple seemed to have a breakthrough.
How do you feel?
This is incredible.
To have a bit of romance.
Oh, this is just truly beautiful.
Absolutely amazing.
So, while the Roosevelt Inn started as a total nightmare, Chef Ramsay managed to turn things around, proving once again that even the most disgusting places can be redeemed. With a lot of bleach and some serious renovations, of course. So, from kitchens straight out of a nightmare to guest rooms that could double as horror movie sets, these hotels were more like health hazards than places to relax. Whether it was moldy bathrooms, filthy sheets, or rodent infestations, the shocking conditions Chef Ramsay uncovered were a wake-up call that some hotels are just better left unbooked. It's a reminder that behind every luxury sign, there could be a serious mess waiting to be cleaned up. But which of these hotels do you think was the worst? Make sure to let me know in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to drop a like, subscribe and turn on my post notification. And if you thought this video was crazy, then you have to check out the next one right here. It's even better.